Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zeckthar,
And I'm Yuksen.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We have seen the rise and fall of many empires, yet this month we will be speaking of the oldest surviving empire in the galaxy. I speak, of course, of the Necrons.
Right you are, Zeckthar, the Necrons. A cold and lifeless horde of soulless robots that began their empire 65 million years ago.
Thank you, Yuksen. And now, without further ado, the history of the Necrons. Well, it seems, Yuksen, that we are starting our last century on the Necrons.
Right you are, brother. But first, before we get too dug into this, I wish to add a clarification of my chronicling, if you don't mind.
Oh, wait, not at all.
My thanks, but I wish to say that when I mentioned the different types of cryptex, I only mentioned 10. Technically, there are countless disciplines when it comes to cryptex.
Yes, Yuksen. And I must admit, I have a clarification as well. I might have misled you, Yuksen, when I said that the Pharaon awakens first on a tomb world. This is not really the case.
What? You misled me? My own brother.
Yes, unfortunately. I got my information wrong. Could we please not make a big deal about it? I don't complain about your little faux pas. Well, here's the deal. This is how a tomb world actually awakens. The first thing that awakens is scarabs, and they start getting everything working within the tomb world. The next thing that opens up is a small contingent of Necron warriors, and they go on, and I'm doing this in parentheses, a raid. The concept behind this is so that they can actually see what's going on the planet and gathering intel. That's their whole concept. Then, after that, anyways, that's when the Pharaon wakes up and he's able to determine what needs to be done on this planet. Well, I think that covers it for our clarifications. Wait. I almost forgot. We actually did get a message through the Vox.
We did?
Yes, Yuksen, we did. A human by the name of Sakrona asked if the Gauss blaster is a heavy weapon or a repeating weapon.
Well, the answer to that is in reference to how the army's set up. The generic weapon, as we know, is the Gauss flare. The Gauss blaster is a more powerful, faster firing weapon variation of it. So you could say it's kind of like going from a rifle to a fully automatic.
Like
rifle.
within Terran 42, an M60 versus an M16.
Right.
We did have to delve a little bit into this Sakrona because we thought maybe it was just a high-powered rifle that had two barrels. The more we looked into it, the more we found out that it's much more like a repeater, like what Yuksen is saying. Right?
Right. But I think we should discuss a couple of the strange combative units this week.
Like who?
Glad you asked. Let's start with the Flayed Ones. Flayed Ones are a horrifying group of Necrons that utilize their sharp blades like claws in melee. Despite their effectiveness to the Necrons, they are not invited to join in armies so much as they mysteriously appear through a pocket dimension that even Necrons don't know where from.
Really? They just magically appear.
Yep.
Have no idea how they get there. Just all of a sudden, poof, here they come.
Yep. Pretty much.
That's hard to strategize around.
This loathing towards the Flayed Ones is due to their ghoulishness and their hunger for living flesh. For these particular creatures have been inflicted with the curse to hunger for flesh and have been driven to madness to the point where they will use their wicked claws to flay any organic life form and then wear its flesh.
It's pretty ghoulish. That is exactly how you would describe the word. That's pretty ghoulish. Think zombies on steroids. Well, what about the other unit?
Well, the other one we shall move on from one madness engulfed unit to another one. This would be the creatures known as destroyers, in comparison to flayed ones who were driven to madness by a flesh-hungering curse. Destroyers are believed to have been driven mad by their psyche having been torn asunder, and upon waking up and gain a desire to destroy all living things, hence the name Destroyer. These self appointed heralds of oblivion disregard any idea of regaining flesh like form. They replace their legs with antigravitic repulsor platforms and fuse their arms to the workings of gauze cannons.
So they're very similar to the Adeptus Mechanicus in the fact that they slowly transform their bodies into machines. That's pretty terrible.
Well, except for, well, not to get too deep into the Adeptus Mechanicus, their viewpoint is flesh is weak, whereas destroyers, it's we must destroy all living things.
Right. Oh no, I understand that. all I'm saying is that this concept of slowly molding their bodies into like a more destructive thing. I mean, that's kind of what the Adeptus Mechanicus does. Unfortunately, I will say this though. Here is the huge difference to me, anyways, is that the destroyers are already robots. The Adeptus Mechanicus, on the other hand, are human beings that slowly remove their humanity. If we talked about, I mean, like when we talked about Drazine, and he meets up with the Adeptus Mechanicus, what's his name? The Archmagos. You remember his name?
No.
Ah, okay. Well, anyways, one of the things he mentions to him, anyways, he said, the Archmagos, anyways, looks at him and he goes, "We're nothing alike." And he goes, "Perhaps I was led in chains, anyways, to become what I am today, a robot. While you, anyways, do it willingly." That is a huge difference. And like I said before, quite horrible. But yeah, we probably shouldn't get too terribly involved with the Adeptus Mechanicus. There will be time for that later. I think, Yuksen, we should probably get into the actual doctrines and tactics of the Necrons. What do you think?
I will leave it to you, brother.
Oh, well, thank you. The Necrons, as because they are so ancient, they have kind of a very methodical way of moving their troops forward. If you want to look for a good example of this, you could look at in Terran 42 before the Maximus reforms in the Republic of Rome. You had three tiers of troops. You had the youngest troops and the less equipped, known as the Histati. Then after that, you had Principes. They were more armored and better solid units. And then you had the veterans at the very end, which were known as the Triari. The Necrons kind of fight the same way. You've got your guys in the front, which are kind of, they're either Necron warriors or the guys you were just talking about, the flayed ones. Just kind of run up anyways. They're kind of the meat shields, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Flayed ones are more of not necessarily meat shields as there are is terror weapons and infiltration.
Right. But at the same time, the terror weapon of them being on the battlefield is that they're running at them, and they're going to be normally the ones that are in the first line, right?
Yeah, or among them.
Okay. Second line, anyways, is normally your beefier units, like for instance, the Immortals, the heavy firepower and whatnot. And then you got in the far back, you've got your really beefy troops. That's one strategy that they use, and that's one of the basic tactics that they use. Another one that they use is something that is very similar to what we would call the hammer and anvil. The hammer and anvil is one of the oldest tactics on in the universe. It's very simple. The concept is that you have strong enough troops to hold an enemy in place while you have your speedier troops come around the sides and just smash them in their flanks and behind them. This is something that is commonly used by Necrons because they have really tough troops. I mean, the Necron warrior in and of itself is this giant robot dude. and he can hold the line very well. And when everybody else gets stuck in and they start fighting these guys, then all of a sudden, all of your fast units, which aren't really all that fast for most races, but they're powerful, come around the sides anyways, and just while everybody else is fighting that guy in front of him, all of a sudden everybody swoops in from the sides and just smashes them into dust. And from what I've read, that is the quintessential tactics for the Necrons. Now, they hold some similarities between the rest of the races with their tactics, but what are the basic tactics that you've found anyways with other races in this universe? Let's start with the Tau.
Well, Tao's very direct, basically. Try to wipe them out before they get to you. We have artillery, and we'll use them, and actually their artillery are fast suits, so they keep moving them around so that the enemy can't reach them, yet they can rain fire upon them.
So what you're saying is like a single firing line, but then you have the troops behind them anyways, bouncing around them anyways, also giving suppressive fire.
Yes.
So that the enemy doesn't know where to charge to.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the other races?
Well, orcs are very simple. Well, it depends. It does depend.
Oh, really?
Yes. It depends on who's leading them. The general tactics for orcs, we'll just go with the general tactics is blitz.
Can I put this in a single word that everybody will understand?
Sure.
Wog!
Right. Exactly.
That is their whole thing. It's like, there's the enemy. Charge! Or, dare I say, Wog!
Okay, so...
Now, what about the Eldar? We've got, like, 3 more races here. So, we've got the Eldar, and the Dark Eldar use kind of very similar tactics. And then we have the Tyranids, and of course, anyways, the Imperium of Man. So let's start with the Eldar. Okay, how they've changed how they do combat throughout the 65 million years since the last time they fought the Necrons.
The Eldar are, well, to be honest, they aren't one of the greatest races that I like to focus on, so I don't lean into what they do nearly as much. They are more of a hit and run tactics. They have different sects that focus on different aspects. Like they have a group that's solely for, actually a couple of them that are solely for combat, hand to hand. And then they have a couple of them where basically they're just trying to annihilate everything from afar.
So would you say they're very similar to, let's say, in Terran 42, they're very similar to the Viet Cong? Hit and run, stay hidden, strike where they're weak, never hit them where they're hard.
That's their attempts, anyways.
Yeah,
their color schemes, you know,
it doesn't always work out,
especially with their color schemes.
How about the Tyranids?
Tyranids, sheesh.
Actually, you mind if I take this one?
Sure.
Thank you, Yuksen. Tyranids are very similar in the aspect of orcs. Very much just charge forward. The big difference between them, though, and the orcs is that the Tyranids are significantly colder. Their tactics are very hive-minded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very much, anyways, if you looked at like a group of ants, and especially like, for instance, army ants that like march across and they just kind of like storm through everything and eat everything up. That's kind of the tactics the Tyranids use. By the way, all these tactics we will definitely be going more into when we get into them, but we're just giving you a brief concept of how tactics work. Now, we have last, but certainly not least, the Imperium of Man.
Well, actually, I do want to mention that the difference between the Eldar and the Dark Eldar is the Dark Eldar focus mainly on fast attack than probably, actually, I'd say pretty much any other race. Hence why the majority of their forces will be, for example, board riders, hover bikes. They just want to try to get in and out as fast as possible, which is different than the Eldar, because the Eldar are, yes, they want to get in there, but not necessarily get back out, since, a lot of their groups are just melee.
Interesting. I still say, anyways, my concept of the Viet Cong still works with especially the Dark Eldar. They like hit and run tactics. I agree with you. I think the Eldar can actually be stuck in a little bit more, and they do that a little bit more. But I think they both fold from the same doctrine.
Well, we'll get more into it later when we come across them.
Well, yeah, when we come across them and talk about them. But we do need to talk about especially the Imperium of Man, because that is the one that is probably the most important anyways than the Necrons.
It depends on who's basically in charge of the group. It truly depends in that case. The most standard would be you have your basic lineman trooper, generally with a couple of specialists, like somebody who has a flamethrower or a melta weapon, which is a high. Basically, it's meant for anti-tank.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then after that, you'll probably have your like stormtroopers, the people that have the better guns, the better armor. Also, where you'd probably have more of your specialist groups like the Ratlings, which we can talk about at future times.
Excuse me. Have a second, Yuksen. Now we have mentioned how a lot of the tactics work anyways in Warhammer 40K. I do have one last question before you carry on, because if I recall right, you actually have a very interesting story to tell about the Necrons and the Imperium of Man. But do the tactics of the Necrons change depending on who they're fighting?
Judging by how little I actually have seen them fighting, not that much that I can tell. I know that there are some that do, because they've actually studied the different type of foes that they face and their type of doctrine. But
Like the Eldar.
yeah, more significantly the Eldar than anything else.
I mean, we've already talked about before anyways how they tend to thump the Eldar pretty hard every time they ever fight.
Well, plus they faced the Eldar even before they end up going to sleep, so they have more experience dealing with them than any other race.
Right, that's what I was saying. Is that they know that enemy. What's the old expression anyways? To know yourself, or no, to know the enemy means that, but not know yourself means that you will win half the battles. To know yourself and not know the enemy will win half the battles. But if you know not yourself or the enemy, you will lose every time. And
okay,
it actually starts with, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you will always be triumphant.
I'm pretty sure you got that in the wrong order.
I'm pretty sure I did too. but the point still's there. My apologies. It's been a while since I've read Terry 42's Sun Tzu and the Art of War. But
now, Zeckthar, we have discussed in length how the Necrons deal with other races, kinda. But I have an interesting story about how they actually fought alongside the race of man. Shall I share?
Indeed. I have not heard of this. The robots fighting with humanity? Real quick, let me grab my popcorn.
I will tell you the tale on how the Necrons teamed up with the Blood Angels.
Outrageous!
Yep. Let's set the scene here. We have the high world of Gehenna, of which has religious value to the Imperium. Stationed there is the third company of the Blood Angels, which is at this time being commanded by their chapter master, Louis Dante himself. a contingent of Necrons have invaded the planet and have over 3 weeks created massive losses to the Blood Angels. The only thing that's kept the Blood Angels from being completely wiped out by this time is by Dante using his tactical skills and establishing hit and run methods, causing the let's say less than speedy reaction time of the Necrons to be able to hit him well.
Quite right, brother. We've already mentioned that they're somewhat slow.
Yeah. But
sorry, carry on.
After this stretch of time, suddenly the Necrons just stopped attacking when they were almost about to annihilate the Blood Angels completely, and then just stopped, turned around, and started to leave. So after this weird occurrence happened, we go to where Dante and a few of his remaining leaders are in front of a holosphere, or basically a
What?
holographic map.
It's called a what? Polo spear?
Holosphere aspects, depends on who you talk to.
Okay, it's called.
It has many different names.
Okay, but what did you call it?
I originally called it a holosphere.
Oh,
Probably
hollow.
not
Okay.
the word that a lot of people use.
Well, no. I thought you said polo spear. I was like, oh, that's something different, man. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's called a hollow sphere, or what's the other term?
There's
Spectre?
aspect system.
Aspect system. Okay. And what does it look like?
While they're looking at this, trying to figure it out, all of a sudden,
what does it look like? Is it like a little box thing, or is it like a?
It's kind of like you have this table, and this table projects a 3D image.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And generally, I assume it's called a holosphere because generally it's taken like a viewpoint from a planet's view, and then it can go down into like cities and stuff, viewpoints.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I got you. That's pretty cool.
So, anyways, while they're trying to figure this out in front of it, it becomes green, and all of a sudden, basically a holographic image of a Necron head appears, of we shall refer to, since for some reason he's never been given a name, the Prime Judicator.
I believe
Prime Judicator basically
is also known as a herald, correct?
Yes and no.
What's the difference?
He is not just a herald, he is also a speaker for whoever it is that happens to be.
Okay, so the difference is like, for instance, the herald goes, "Here is Grand Vizier Bob."
Yes.
And
he wishes to see you. Whereas this guy would be like that, and then later he would be standing in the meeting room going, okay, so this is what we want. This is what he wants. Okay,
gotcha.
This is what the gist is.
All right. Thank you for letting me know. Carry on.
So anyways, he says basically, you are going to meet with us. And Dante's first response, of course, is, why the heck should we even do that? And the response back was the same as the original one, basically. You are going to meet with us. And after a slight pause, it comes around to we wish to basically create an alliance, and the Silent King will be there himself.
Who?
We have talked about this person before.
Oh no. Oh no. We're gonna go back to Zarek, aren't we? This is a Zarek story.
Unfortunately.
Oh, God dang it. Why is it every time that we have a conversation about the Necrons, you have to plug in how you hate Zarek?
Because
every time
he does a lot of bad things.
He's done some good
trying
things
to do
too.
The right thing and ends up being horrible. Anyways.
All right, go ahead. Tell your story. I'm going to get some more
the story. Okay.
Fine.
So, anyways, they agree to this meeting. One of the things that the Blood Angels do, though, is on the Rhino that they take. Rhino's basically an armored personnel carrier. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically a tank without a turret on it.
An APC.
Uh, so they take it there, but one of the things that they have done is rigged a cyclonic torpedo on it, of which if any of them clench their fist, will be triggered to go off. And a cyclonic torpedo basically destroys anything within a 500-kilometer area.
So they're using this as more of a bomb than an actual torpedo. It is a torpedo.
Yes, because
but they're detonating it.
Basically, these were originally meant, to be fired from orbit, torpedoes from orbit, basically straight down to cause huge explosions, instead of just being a stationary thing that you go click. Mainly because, like I said before, it wipes out a 500-kilometer area. But
okay, I do have to mention here, because if I don't, I'll hate myself for the rest of my life. Why, it's no bigger than a womp rat. Sorry, every time I think of torpedoes, that's what I think of. Go ahead.
Okay.
My apologies.
Anyways, so, and the reason why they did this is mainly because if things go bad, even though that this would destroy a couple of the hive cities, which would be billions of people, along with the Blood Angels that were camped off to the side and themselves. I mean, this is the Silent King. This is somebody that supposedly, to their knowledge, had never even been seen before, let alone, actually talked with. So this would be like the chance of a lifetime. Basically. So, anyways, I digress. So they get out and they start walking, and you can just visualize this one path to this where this throne is. On either side, there's all these elite Necrons, and they've gotten on one knee in respect to the Necron that happens to be on this throne.
If I could stop you there for half a second, Yuksen. Are you talking about like pharaons and lords, or are you talking about like his honor guard? Like the biggest
actually
Necrons?
There are majority of them was praetors, and then they have some actual pharaons that were their actual followers of the Silent King.
That in of itself is
there
pretty
as well.
Impressive. They don't normally conglomerate that much.
Yeah.
But anyways, sorry, carry on.
And so, anyways, upon seeing the king, though, it didn't necessarily go nearly so well as the Necrons assumed, because they got a little upset at the fact that he was wearing a mask that was similar to what Dante wears. Dante, for those of you who do not know anything about him, he wears what is called the death mask of Sanguinius. Now, Sanguinius is the Primarch of the Blood Angels, and this particular death mask, it's furrowed, so it basically expresses the hatred and the anger that he had towards the end of his life, dealing with, all of the war and strife. So what they're seeing when they're looking at this king is he also has this mask. It's also very remnant of their Primarch, except for it has a serene expression to it, as if it was done before the traitor wars and the Primarchs trying to kill each other off, basically.
You're talking about the Horus Heresy here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's face it. Primarchs were trying to kill each other off. I know there's other stuff that's also happening, but
yeah, and we will get into that later. But
so the Judicators explain that, first of all, they blame the Blood Angels for not realizing that they didn't come here to invade. They came here to actually save the planet,
which might be true.
From a splinter hive fleet that was approaching this hive world, which Silent King had calculated that it was going to be going to this planet because it's basically like a beacon to any Tyranid fleet because it's a hive world. It has like billions upon billions upon billions upon billions. Like I said, 2 cities had billions of people in them, just 2 of them.
Right. For a second here, if I might stop you, Yuksen, I have actually been looking through the chronicles of all the stuff that we have. I have not found out what Splinter's hive fleet this was. The only thing I can assume is that it's Gorgon, because that's the only one that's big enough that I can think of, anyways. That splintered off of the Behemoth hive fleet. But unfortunately, anyways, all we have is that it in the records is that is just simply a Splinter hive fleet. I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably Gorgon, but I don't know. What about you?
I thought you hadn't heard this story.
I haven't. But while you're doing this, anyways, I finished my popcorn and I looked up through our data analysis, anyways, some of the stuff that you've got going on here. Because I find this story very interesting. I'm sorry. I might have skipped ahead a little bit. I kind of know how this ends. But please carry on for the rest of the people, anyways, listening to this box.
Okay, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah. They came here supposedly to save them. In reality, let's face it, they were using the hive world as bait. One of the reasons why the Blood Angels claim that they did not see this Tyranid fleet coming is because they were focused on the current battle. It's nothing to do with the fact that the Necrons have better technology. It's they're focused on the main battle.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, we've established that the Necrons have better technology, but
Indeed, we have.
so having almost though talking about the fact that they allude to the fact that maybe if Segways hadn't been caught up in the Horus heresy and the rest of the infighting, he may have actually struck up an allegiance with the Necrons, which obviously irked the Blood Angels. Even thinking that is ridiculous.
It is. It's completely
And
ridiculous, but especially during the Horus Heresy, you have the Emperor of Man, who literally made it a decree: anything that is not human must be destroyed.
anyways,
Sorry.
the fact that he was able to give a good enough reason to why this may be possible, and it kind of is referenced later. It came down to, despite them almost, closing fists and completely annihilating everything, they struggled through it, and he had convinced Dante to go along with this alliance. So what Dante does is he walks up to where the throne is and extends his hand out to the king after saying, yes, we will support this alliance. And he also says, if things go well, maybe we'll even have further talks concerning further cooperation. So the Silent King gets off his throne, goes over, takes his hand, then leans forward and whispers something in Dante's ear that just causes eyes to widen up in shock and confusion.
I don't have records of that, brother. What did he say?
He said, "They are the rising storm, and you must become the shield." Now we can discuss what this means, what this could possibly mean later, because
Fair enough. Continue your
for
chronicling.
now we'll just keep moving on.
Yes.
So,
yes, indeed.
Despite them agreeing, they end up going back to the Blood Angel camp, to get coordinated and stuff, and to say that Dante's decision met with a lot of hostility, not necessarily the right word. Basically going, why on earth would you ally with, these things that were quite literally about to wipe us off? Let alone the fact that they're aliens to begin with. One of the things he points out is, I'm doing this for the good of the people. Plus, if talks are done afterwards, I'm just gonna kill them during the talks. Straight up, I'm just gonna kill the Silent King if we have any further talks. Wonderful people these are. Anyways, so they combine forces, and as they fight the Tyranids, they obviously do well. But one of the things Blood Angels notice is as time continues on and battles are won and the Tyranid are being whittled down, the fewer and fewer Necrons are showing up during these battles until the point where, towards the very end of the fight against the Tyranids, there are no more Necrons supporting them. And they come to realization that basically the only reason the Necrons had only supplied enough to tip the scale towards victory instead of just going all out. And so it's kind of like they kind of snubbed them and then just left.
Okay, I have a different analysis of this. Okay,
But
I'm thinking of one or two things here. But they were victorious at the end, right? Blood Angels.
Yeah.
Okay, and just a quick question before I give my analysis: did Zarek ever actually go back and talk to Dante?
No. In fact, that whisper is the only time they actually technically talked at all during the story. The rest of the time it was always through the Prime Judicator.
Okay, I find that interesting. I would have thought that Zarek probably would have actually talked to Dante afterwards, or whispered some sort of wisdom to him throughout the voxing. I look at this anyways, where you're looking at it and just kind of like, well, they just left them out to dry. I'm thinking it's more pragmatic on two fronts. One is that humanity has, like I said before, anyways, humanity has this wonderful aspect of if it's not human, just kill it. And I think Zarek was looking at that and is like, okay, well, they're winning the battle. We're helping them. So therefore, as long as we slowly start dropping our troops back anyways, they can't blow their heads off when the fighting is done. Or the other option is, which also could work, and this one I think you'll agree with me with this, Yuksen, is the fact that he was using the Blood Angels. He was using them to help him anyways, kill off the Splinter Hive unit, and as long as they were doing their job, he would support them just enough anyways to continue moving it forward. But as soon as they had the battle in hand, we're out.
Yeah, that's what I would probably lean more towards too.
Yeah, well, especially in this universe, because everything is dark and grim and everybody hates each other. But on that concept, I do have a couple notes here. I know we're going to talk about Zarek. This is going to be kind of our final chapter in the Necrons. But Zarek, as you know, brother, is...
Oh, hold on. Before we do that, there's a couple of things. One is...
Okay.
I would like to note, for those who are interested, there is another longer variation of this tale, and it's named The Word of the Sun King, and it's done by the individual known as L.J. Goulding, or Goulding. Also, I want to hear your opinion on what do you think the phrase "they are the rising storm and you must become the shield" is. The words that Zarek told Dante.
Oh, yes. Well, first off, anyways, that first article that you were talking about, anyways, I think that's a lengthy book, anyways, that you can actually pick up on Amazon, correct?
If you call, about 27 pages long.
Oh, it's a short story. Okay.
But much longer than what I just said, so
fair enough.
A longer variation.
So repeat his words again real quick.
They're the rising storm and you must become the shield.
Okay, I'm thinking it's one of two things. It's either him anyways talking about chaos, which he's probably not because it's Zarek. I'm thinking it's more along the lines, anyways, of him talking about the defense against the Tyranids. And the Tyranids. Okay, here's the interesting thing about the Tyranids. We've talked about a lot of different races, a lot of different empires in the Milky Way of the Warhammer 40K universe. The Tyranids I actually find the most dangerous because they are there are so many of them, and this conglomerate of there's this thought that all these hive fleets are actually being devolved around one hive mind. To me, that is very scary. If the Tyranids, all of them show up in this universe, they will destroy everything in front of them. And I think Zarek has seen that in his travels through the Milky Way systems. That's why he came back. He's like, oh no, there's something worse than the old ones, the Catan and the Aldari combined. I got to come back anyways and help my people. That's what I think it means. But what do you think it means, Yuksen?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One of the things is the problem I have with your statement is because of his mindset is that the Tyranid have to be dealt with. If he thought that they were worse than all those put together, why on earth would he even be thinking about collecting them together to fight against the Tyranid to begin with?
Huh?
I mean, the Tyranid don't really, unless they were to attack the Tyranid pretty much ignore them because, they're metal, basically.
Yeah, but at the same time, they want to become the Necron tier again. They want to become, dare I say, their human form instead of being a robot.
My point being is, though, if he thought they were worse than all those combined, why would he even be attempting to try to bring all the Necrons together to fight the Tyranids? Because the way that you stated it, you're saying basically they would have no way of winning.
Because Zarek has this concept that the way that they become Necron tier again is through humanity. He thinks the way that coming back from being a soulless robot is through humanity. It's gene seeds or whatever you want to talk about, anyways. That's his thought process. As opposed to Xeris, who probably already has the answer. He just doesn't care about that. He wants to be a god. Zarek, on the other hand, really wants his people to thrive and prosper. And this is where it comes into the crux of the whole problem between me and you, anyways, about Zarek. You think of Zarek as this kind of bumbling fool who makes all these ridiculous mistakes, and all of a sudden you have this giant robot army. I think that he has just been put between a rock and a hard place countless times, and he wants to expand his empire. And it never works out for him. And I think anyway, since he has come back, he has learned some knowledge, and maybe he might actually work this out all right. Now, we have gone a little bit far afield from what you really think, anyways. He meant when he talked to Dante. What do you think he meant when he talked to Dante? Okay. And then, mind you, Yuksen. And then after that, anyways, you can go ahead and give your own explanation of Zarek.
Okay, yeah. I think the Rising Storm he is also mentioning as the Tyranid. I do think that since through the Judicator, it's mentioned that he, or inference that he had actually talked with their Primarch and them finding it may also be a reference towards maybe something that had been told down the line from the Blood Angels' actual ranks over time, but only now it would make sense because they weren't able to connect. Okay, what is the storm? Because this is some sort of comment that was, talked about before they even really existed, apparently.
Okay. So, first off, here's the first question. Do you think that the Silent King Zarek actually talked to Sanguinius?
I think there's a strong possibility that he would.
That's interesting because if I recall right, anyways, he's just shown back up in the galaxy.
Oh no,
So
he's been around for a while.
I know he has, but he's been space surfing out there in oblivion. Remember his
Okay,
penance.
he's been
So
back for a while though. You gotta remember him being
okay,
gone for 60 million years. Yeah, well, the Imperium's been around for how long?
so he's not just gotten back; he has
No.
been back for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. And secondly, the other thing about this is why on earth would Sanguinius? I mean, right arm of the emperor who hates everything that is not humanity. Why would he be in contact and actually have conversation with Zarek?
That is a question that would be up to debate, but I currently would have no opinion on it.
I might have one, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I think that Zarek, when he came back, looked at all this biomass known as humanity and realized that it was a huge problem, especially for the Tyranids coming back. So he tried to engage in conversation with somebody, anybody that would talk to him. I mean, he obviously can't talk to Lehman Russ. He'd just kill him, along with the lion and the other guy, Dorn. I mean, they all just, if he even tried to get in conversation with him, they'd just murder him. So he picked the best option that he possibly could. Said, "Hey, I understand you got this whole war with chaos right now and trying to unite all of humanity, but we've got a bigger problem." That's the only way that I could possibly see, anyway, Sanguinius actually listening to him.
Yeah, but here's the next thing. Why would he choose the Blood Angels? Why wouldn't he choose somebody like the Salamanders? Well, anyways.
Oh, no. Okay, I got an answer for you. The salamanders, everything that they do, anyways, is for humanity.
Right.
They love humanity. And anything and they full-heartedly agree anything that is not humanity, anyways, must be exterminated. That's why. I think, anyways, he couldn't even carry an audience with Vulcan. Sanguinius, on the other hand, Sanguinius is kind of a wild card. He always kind of has been. I mean, he hates chaos with a passion, but at the same time, he's always kind of been a wild card. He is the right hand of the emperor, and at the same time, he has this. Because of that, he has this know-how. He kind of thinks outside the box a lot of times. It's him and then the other guy, Horus, and Horus, unfortunately, chose the wrong side. And he chose chaos.
Well, I think both sides are screwed up, but anyways.
Yeah. But this, okay. So you really do think that he is talking about the Tyranids?
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to chaos. I mean, that is another hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because why would that even make sense for Zarek to say that? Yeah,
because chaos
the chaos is rising. Why do the Necrons care about the chaos?
Because they're kind of a problem.
Yes, but why would he say that?
I mean,
somebody who's basically solely looking for a way to get rid of Tyranids.
Fair enough. Well, no. Okay. Why am I arguing this? You agree with me. But, okay. Can we at least bury the hatchet with Zarek before we end this thing?
Oh, wait. I have one more thing.
Okay.
One more thing.
All right.
Okay. Actually, a couple things. One is, I never said he was a bumbling idiot. I do think that he's made some horrible choices.
I'll agree with you on that.
Which, if you think about it and you think maybe if he thought a little bit more about it, he wouldn't have made those decisions or tried to figure out a way to, minimize the damage. This particular story is another one of those instances where you go, what? Basically. Because, okay, they go to this world, Gehenna, and then they decide to land on it with Necron forces, which, every single contact pretty much between the Necrons and humans has been, fight each other, kill each other. Why on earth would that have changed? So he just goes, okay, we'll drop these people in here. We won't contact them. We won't let them know what we're here for. We'll just drop ourselves in. How does that make sense if you're going to use them as allies or be saving them, in quotes?
Now, you are also looking at Imperium doctrine, correct?
I'm looking at basically every single variation except for a couple of times, this being one of them.
Well, okay. The reason I ask is because who knows if he actually landed them down there anyways to help support, and all of a sudden the Blood Angels go, aliens, kill.
But up until that point, he had never made any actual contact with them.
True.
So
that also could be anyways this simple concept that he hadn't figured it out yet.
And so apparently it took him over 3 weeks to figure it out.
Yep.
And over that time decide to have them turn around and walk away after almost annihilating them.
Yep.
You see the flaw in this logic?
Yep. Yeah.
So you agree this is still a stupid idea at the time.
And you started talking, I'm like, yeah, okay, never mind. That's a bad one. But okay, the reason why I try to plug this in though is because I really honestly think out of a lot of races, Zarek is probably okay. Obviously, my favorite Necron character is Shazine. Right?
Yeah.
We talked about him. I mean, the historian of historians and the Milky Way, other than us. But Zarek, I kind of like Zarek. I kind of root for him. He has made some bad decisions. Yes, I'll agree with you on that. He has made some bad decisions, but at the same time, he still did overthrow the old ones. He also overthrew the Catan, so that his race was free, and then deciding anyways a way that he could, the only way he could figure out anyways how they could become the Necron tier again would be to get away from the Eldar or the Eldari for a while, so that when they came back, they'd be more powerful. They could stomp them out, and then they could figure it out. What he didn't realize was the aspect of humanity and the orcs and the Tyranids. And, well, okay, in a lesser extent, the Tau. I mean, let's face it, the Tau aren't really all that important in this, but
and the can't forget the Voton.
Oh yeah, right, Space Dwarves. Yeah, how could we forget the Space Dwarves? But still, it's he didn't know these other races were going to exist. He really thought the only person he was going to have to compete against was the Eldar. And on top of that, when he went to go into his own penance, he went out there anyways and found out there's something significantly worse. It's the Tyranids. So he scootled back home anyways to make sure that he could revive his people so that they could have some sort of defense against them. Honestly, in my opinion, Zarek's kind of a hero. I mean, a bumbling hero, but a hero. I don't know. What do you think?
It depends on what you define as a hero. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. How would you define a hero then?
It depends.
And what?
Depends on if you're talking about, for example, these groups of people. This person stands out the most because they have done this. Yes, some people would call that a hero. At the same time, it could be, yeah, this person did some great achievements, but he also massacred planets for no reason. But he's still a hero because he saved one.
Okay, I will leave you with one statement anyways, and it's an old statement. Kill a man, you're a murderer. Kill 10, you're a psychopath. Kill 100, you're a hero. Kill 100,000, you're a conqueror. Where do you think he lies on that spectrum?
Technically, he would be conqueror, which means no, he won't be a hero.
Good point. Good point.
Anyways, unfortunately, brother, that is all the time we have for the Empire of the Necrons.
Quite right, Yuksen. We have talked this to death. But next week, we are going to be discussing one of your favorite subspecies of humanity. I speak, of course, of the space wolves.
Oh, goody. I can't wait to talk about the crazy space Vikings. Where's my mead?
I believe I have a Fenris sweet floating around here somewhere. Come on. Well, don't worry. I'll find it by next week.
Well, until then, this is Yuksen and Zeckthar signing off.